into everyone's hands. There we go. All right. How is everybody doing? Pop a 1 in the chat if you are feeling like you want to get some amazing insights from these archetypes. Pop a 1 in the chat. What do you got? Yes.
Yay.
Okay. Pop a 2 in the chat if you think that this will help you communicate with other people better. Awesome. 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 And pop a 3 in the chat if you have the book and have read the book. Yeah, I'm going to put a 3 in the chat here because.
Me too.
Oh, Paul's read some of
a
it.
few times.
Nanda's read it. Yes. Go Nanda. Right on. Great work. All right. So I am so excited and so fortunate to bring on Carey Davidson. She's the author of the 5 Archetypes. She's the co-founder of Turn Us All Wellness as well. That's where the kids get to do this. It's a nonprofit. She's done all sorts of things to dive into really helping people understand themselves, understand others, connect with others, have more peace within themselves. She works with corporations. She works she does public speaking, so keynote speeches. She does all kinds of workshops. And this is helping people from relationships to how people communicate in the workplace to you're going to list all the things. So I'm going to hand this over to Carey because she's going to help us with our archetypes and help us understand ourselves and each other a little bit more. So can everybody give a little hand for Carey, and thank you for being with us. Yeah. And I'm going to pass this over to you. Welcome, Carey Davidson.
Thanks, Carey. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do to inspire people and to help people live their best lives. I'm really, really honored to be here with you guys today. And I want to be able to help you understand yourselves, your relationships. And what I teach are these hidden dynamics underneath why we do what we do, why we think what we think, and why we perceive the realities we perceive. And then how to recognize when they're helping us, when they're not. And when we can recognize when they're not, the 5 archetypes gives you very specific strategies to change your mind at that point where we're most at risk for making a really ineffective decision in relationships or, with loved ones, with our family or at work. And what I wanted to do with you guys today is, since it looks like a lot of you have your scores, I'd love to give you a little bit of a container of understanding what this is, and then dive in to unraveling some challenges that you're dealing with. So I'll show you live how it works and how to use it for yourself. Does that sound like a good idea? Does that sound like something you'd like to do? Okay.
I add one thing in here for everyone who hasn't used this yet. It's that this has changed the dynamic between Paul and I. This work has changed how we see each other in so many ways. We'll be in the kitchen now and go, oh, that's your metal showing up. Oh, you need to do it just like this. And I'm not allowed to touch it. And it has to be exactly like this. And me, oh, that's not fast enough. Everybody, let's go. Come on, everybody, go. That's my wood. That's his metal. And then we see where they're sometimes clashing and where they work really, really well together. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm really, really emphasize to people that once you see this stuff, once you see your archetypes, it changes how you see other people and changes how you see yourself. And there's so much there. So if is there anything you want to educate anyone on the archetypes before we go into your workshop?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of core fundamental ways to think about ourselves. And then I'll go into like, what are the 5 briefly, so you understand them. And then we'll go into saving people's lives, relationships. so, so there's core fundamentals when thinking about how to thrive or how to create the reality that you want, and how to get unstuck from the perceptions and the thoughts that hold us back. One is that we humans tend to believe everything we think, feel, see, sense right off the bat. If it comes into our mind, we believe it. And then we usually have an emotion about it. And then we usually take action as a result of that thing that we believe. And that's kind of where we go astray, is taking things personally in the first place and believing all these things that we think. The ego is wired to stay comfortable. And when we're in our comfort zone, we're not really living our highest path. And our highest path is kind of revealed by understanding these archetypes, which I'll explain to you. The other thing is, so, not believing everything that comes into your mind. So pause when you have a belief. Second is not taking everything personally. Just observing things, like getting used to being still and noticing, like Carey was saying, like maybe before she heard about the archetypes, she would have gotten upset, that Paul wasn't moving fast enough in the kitchen. And now all of a sudden she may still get upset, but she pauses with that and doesn't believe and attach to that as being true. She's like, oh, wait, hold on a second. That's metal. He needs that to feel safe. The other thing is that remember that context matters. Nothing grows out of context. So for example, when we use absolutes and generalities, you never pick up your dirty laundry. You always forget to get the kids from school. I hope not. When we use absolutes and generalities, we always cause pain. So everything in context. Paul might be slow in the context of wood energy, but not in the context of water energy. And so understanding how we relate to each other and diving in to really understanding these deeper parts of ourselves will save us from taking things personally. And then choosing actions and beliefs that lead to disharmony in relationships. So those are just some things. You'll see how they fall into place as we go through this. So it sounds like all of you took the assessment. You'll notice that we all have all of these 5 archetypes within us. They stem from ancient Chinese medicine. So they incorporate all of the physical, cognitive, behavioral, relationship, spiritual components of a whole person. And so for example, it deals with, like, when I see your scores, your assessment results, I'll know you're getting good sleep, what your digestive system is doing, what your relationship is to exercise. And I'll also be able to tell you how your relationship to exercise impacts your ability to take things personally or not. So like all of these parts of us are intertwined, our physical, our cognitive, our spiritual, everything. And let's see, we can get stuck in any of these ways. And these different parts of us actually make up the treatment plan for getting us unstuck. So if I notice that you, in your scores, that maybe it's hard for you to make a decision, that taking action is scary, I'm not going to ask you to all of a sudden face your fears. Rather, I'm going to talk to you about your relationship to exercise, which is the foundation of wood energy, which is movement and decisiveness. And so if we can improve your relationship to your wood energy on any level of that spectrum, all of a sudden it starts to loosen up your fear of making a decision. So you'll start to see this unfold as we look at people's scores. So, so what are these five? They're fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. We all have all five. We usually have one that leads the way we view the world, that will help us predict what we're going to take personally, what we're going to think about ourselves when we take that stuff personally, what we're going to think about the other person who did it, how we're going to get stuck, and our very specific path out of getting stuck, out of how we create harmony in relationship, in context to who we are and who we're engaging with. So when your primary is fire, your gift to the world is joy and hope and optimism. Your biggest fears revolve around loss of love and loss of connection. And when you experience the potential for loss of love or loss of connection, you go into big panic, big anxiety fast. You feel emotional pain all over your body. And it's like a lightning strike, and it hurts like heck. But it hits really fast, and then it's over, like a flash in the pan, like a fire. Fire needs to be seen and loved and appreciated for who they are in order to feel safe taking risks and doing things that are uncomfortable. What else do I want to tell you about? Fire can't tolerate uncomfortable emotions in themselves or others. So they will avoid conflict or avoid saying no because they think it might make you upset. Then we have Earth. Earth people, their gift to the world is unity and empathy. Earth people come out of the womb knowing what you need and loving to be able to give it to you. Earth people need to be needed. They can't tolerate disunity or, their biggest fears revolve around abandonment. When they experience their fears, they become inert. They get stuck. They cannot make a decision because all they want to do is please everybody. But the truth is we can't ever please everybody. And so they don't know how to make any decision. Earth people, they lack sometimes the dynamic tension to make a choice. And it's safer, it feels more comfortable to masticate, to like keep thinking about it, and to talk about an idea, to tell a story, or to ask more questions, or have one more brainstorming meeting, under the guise of we're just not ready yet. But really what's underneath that, what's motivating that, is this fear of having to be decisive. Like maybe I'll leave someone out, or maybe I'll make someone upset who wanted to be the one in charge. So then you have, just seeing if there's anything else I want to tell you. Then we have metal. Metal's gift to the world is beauty and perfection. Metal people, they come into the world knowing what's valuable, knowing how to tell it to you, and knowing what not to waste your time on. Like here's the diamond in the rough, throw the rest out. Metal can't tolerate chaos or change very well. They like consistency. They like to know what's going to happen. They like everything to be orderly. When they get stressed out, their biggest fears revolve around making a mistake, being wrong, and they will over focus on the details and under focus on the big picture, or they'll over focus on the past and under focus on what's the new future we're going to build, even in the face of this mistake. Metal can get stuck in the personal perspective. When what I mean by that is they can take it personally if you don't take their valuable advice. They'll think it's a reflection on, wait, don't I know the right way? Am I making a mistake? So they'll think it's a reflection on them if they give you great advice and you decide not to take it. Then we have water. Water's gift to the world is peace and deep meaning, and knowing how to pause and think through things and build something that's going to last for eternity. Water people, they focus on distilling the truth out of mystery, and that takes a long time. So these are people that take their time. They're not in a rush. They're not acting on emotion like the rest of the elements. Water people, they get addicted to thinking, and they can't tolerate socializing too much. So their biggest fears revolve around being misunderstood. But if you think about it, how can one be understood if one doesn't want to talk? So we don't know what they're thinking, we assume, and then, you know, there'll be some sort of conversation and the water will get aggravated. Like think of a massive storm, a hurricane. Like it's a rumbling, intense thing that happens inside of water when they feel misunderstood, but they don't think they should have to tell you. So they create, you know, this discomfort in the relationship when they're in their fear state. And when they fear being misunderstood, their reactionary state is isolation, over isolation, and they're prone to depression. And then we have wood. Wood people, their gift to the world is freedom, teaching us how to be free by making a plan and not believing in obstacles. Obstacles are just something funny that's in the way, that's just giving me a fun game to play to get it out of the way. Wood loves being fast, first, best. They love winning. When they can't tolerate things or people getting in their way of getting things done fast, they can't tolerate criticism easily. And when they're in a stress state, they may over believe that certain things are criticism when it was just, you know, making a point. And when they feel confined, they can burst into anger quickly because wood people move the fastest, and they're like, imagine like a coil inside, like always moving up. And if it's a machine and it's always going and something gets in the way, what does it do? The machine crushes it. Move. I'm moving up. And so there's that energy inside that needs to burst that thing in the way to get it gone, so I can keep moving. I can keep that momentum, and then wood keeps going. But sometimes in that space, wood loses sight of how everyone else experienced that outburst. so so that's kind of like part of like giving you a little bit of an inkling of what happens in these relationships. I think we got the 5. Any questions about any of those? Or Carey, is there anything I left out that you think I should share before we workshop people?
I love the descriptions because I can see the little smiles here and there when people are seeing their own. They're like, oh yeah, I do that, or I know somebody who does that. So I love that. I think that's fantastic. Let's just see if there's any questions right off the hop before you really start to peel back what's going on for people's archetypes. Any questions for Carey? You can pop it in the chat, or you can pop your hand up and we will have you unmute. No questions? I don't see any right now.
Nanda's got one.
Oh, Nanda, sorry. Go ahead, Nanda.
Carey, I have a question. Thank you for being here first.
Hi.
Thank you for putting this together. About like the archetypes, do they change a little bit? Do your like the percentages they fluctuate a little bit, or they are kind of set for life? Can you think about it?
Yeah, so according to Chinese medicine, we have one that's our primary, that guides the way that we engage when we're at our worst and when we're at our best. When we're balanced, we have access to all of them kind of equally. And the percentages, really, it's not like a test that labels you and diagnoses you and that's your thing and that's it. It's very different. this is a reflection of your perception of yourself in this moment, which may change when you're in stress. 5 archetypes is like, that assessment is the same thing that if you ever went for acupuncture and had your pulses taken. I don't know if anyone in the room has ever had acupuncture, but you're diagnosed by a pulse. And your pulse shows the balance of the 5 energies in your body. You know, acupuncture, Chinese medicine is not about labeling you with a diagnosis and then giving you a pill. It's about recognizing that there are 5 forces in us that keep us balanced. And when we're balanced, we can handle anything mentally, emotionally, socially, relationship, any kind of little bug that comes our way. You know, we have a very strong mental, emotional, and physical immune system. But when we're out of balance, you can tell by the pulse, and the pulse will say like, oh, her heart energy is attacking her lung energy. So she's short of breath and she's got rosacea. And so when I can actually see similar things to that in your scores based on your perception of yourself is like your pulse. And so sometimes I'll see, you know, scores will fluctuate because maybe you checked like sometimes now, but like some of the, you know, like rarely, it doesn't, the number is not as significant of the primary, or each of the numbers is not as significant as their relationship to each other. So their order in which is usually, you'll notice like, there's not much fluctuation between, you know, where the highest and your lowest is. The lowest tends to stay the lowest unless you really work on that aspect of yourself. And the highest tends to be the highest. I have worked with people who've gone through major life crises. And in that moment, we take on the opposite of ourselves. Like, for example, a woman I had once as a client, a primary earth, who was in her marriage, she let her spouse walk all over her for 2 decades. And one day she got really mad and she's like, I've had it. I'm not, this is it. It's done. I'm done with this. And they broke up. But for a good like 4 months, her wood was higher than her earth, because she needed that in order to overcome, you know, this mindset of this is what I deserve. And I, you know, it's my fault. I'm feeling guilt. But then she evened back out. So our primary is something that, like, you look over your lifetime, like, what are you mostly? Not when you're in crisis, but mostly this is how I engage on a day-to-day basis with challenges that come up. With when my husband wants to cook something in the kitchen and it needs to be precise, but I want it to be fast. So, you know, did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
There's a question in the chat there. Carey, you mentioned something
Yeah.
about our relationship with exercise and how it can reveal things about us. I'm not articulating that the way you said it, but it speaks to balance, I think.
Yeah. So each of the 5 elements has a physical correlate. So wood is movement, exercise. Fire is play. Earth is eating, food and digestion. Metal is the breath. And water is sleep and hydration, drinking enough water. And so if you look at your assessment results and you see which one of those is your lowest, ask yourself, what's my relationship to that physical behavior? So usually you'll notice if wood is your lowest, it takes a lot to get you out of bed in the morning and exercise. Like, it takes a lot to get you to stick to an exercise routine. If wood is your highest, you cannot go through one day without exercising. And so if wood is somewhere along that spectrum, you'll notice that your relationship to exercise is kind of where that, you know, where it stands along that spectrum. So wood is my second. I know I need it. It's also, I mean, if I said fire is my primary, wood is my second, wood feeds my ability to stay clear. And so if I don't exercise, I can get muddled. But because I'm fire, if it's not fun, I won't do it. It has to be fun. So I pair it with like listening to a book I love, or talking to, going out for a walk and talking to my best friend from childhood, or knowing like I'm going to take a walk to the store I love. I have to pair it with fun and variety, or my fire will get the best of me. So yeah, so yes, so balance, exercise is just one piece of balance. We also need to make sure we're breathing. Like how often do we pause and actually think about, did I take a deep breath? Am I actually breathing? Ugh, am I shallow breathing? So not Carey has 3 primaries. Are they all 3 tied?
Yeah, I just realized, hi Carey, I did your assessment in 2021. I was just looking back for it, and yeah, fire 83, metal 82, wood 85. Like that's
Yes.
that kind of counts as tied, doesn't it?
Well, so this test was created over the course of about a decade by 3 different Chinese medicine doctors, and over the past decade, I've the one that's on my website is also a little bit tweaked because I've been working with mainly with people in companies, and I send them to my assessment because the one on our nonprofit site, I think, still has some physical well-being questions, and I can't use that in a corporate setting. But I've tweaked the questions to really reflect what I've been seeing in the population, as far as like, what do wood people tend to act like now, or what do metal people tend to really, get aggravated by now, and how weighty is that particular question. So, but according to, the 3 folks who originally created it, it's very highly sensitive, and certain questions are weighted because they tend to really be more like, people who do this or have this regularly really tend to be primary wood. And so I would say I would go with wood as your primary, unless you have like an equal tie, and then I would ask you some other questions. But when I just tapping into your energy, I mean, I feel from you more wood than anything else. But we could, I could ask you questions to break it down, but let's see. So someone suggested, is your name Peter, not Carey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone suggested that you've been doomed for some time now. Yeah, so Allison, you also have 3 that are very close. Yeah. Yeah. Which ones?
My earth is 78.3, and then I'm tied with fire and metal at 76.5. So those are really close.
And then your other 2?
My other 2 are wood at 72.9 and water at 62.1.
Yeah. So the thing is that these elements, they don't mean, remember I said something about like, we don't grow out of context. Context really matters. So our assessment results are interesting, but meaningless out of context. Like if I were to say, if Carey and Paul showed me their scores in a vacuum, just alone, I'd be like, you tend to move fast, and Paul, you tend to want to not move fast. But that's meaningless to them. They can't apply that to anything. So 5 archetypes is a system for, it's a rubric for change. Like, so if I want to, so Allison, if you were telling me, Carey, I want to get better sleep, or I want to turn off my brain at some point, I'd be like, oh, okay. I can see how your brain gets too activated, and why you have this problem, and exactly a very specific plan that that your mind won't resist in order to achieve the results you want. So, you know, it's like knowing, you know, we're very like in tune with labeling ourselves. We are in a Western culture that loves labels. You know, I have ADD, I have this diagnosis, I have, my kid has that, or, you know, we love a diagnosis because we think that without it, we don't know what to do for ourselves. And we've been conditioned in that way in the Western culture and psychology and all the things we do. Eastern practices are wildly different. And so sometimes I find that people kind of have to bend their brains to know, like, wait, what do I do with this? I got a tie or what? So, because we're so used to this label and specificity, whereas, you know, the 5 archetypes work is about how do we create balance? How do we take disharmony and create harmony? And this is the rubric through which to activate that, to make that happen. And it's especially brilliant in the face of relationships on 3 levels. My relationship to my own emotions, thoughts, well-being choices, whether I exercise, whether I believe in my big emotions, my relationship to the people around me, and then my relationship to change. To like going to my office and all of a sudden we have a new technology I have to learn, or going to the office and now I'm managing 5 new people that I didn't know I was managing yesterday. So dealing with change of any sort. So Allison, I don't know if I like answered your question or just added some more.
No, I mean, I get it. But I do have a question around that. Does having a number of the elements that are close in that number imply that there's more balance between those relationships than there are? Like my lowest is what, water?
Water,
Is water?
yeah. So you'll see when your scores are closer together, you have equal access to those types of behaviors a lot of the time. So so you probably are very passionately earth. So higher scores mean you're more passionate. I mean, think about those topics. Think about how you answered the assessment. Always or most of the time. That's a passionate answer. You know, so you're passionate about those things. So you are passionately earth, but also fire, metal, and wood. But earth is your highest. You will care more and you will do more earthy things in the face of stress. But when water is your lowest, so water, by the way, across the population, what we've noticed in the past 10 years, a few 100,000 people have taken the assessment, and water, around 90% of the people in our population have lowest water, if it's not their primary, if it's just one of the other 4. And what does that say? I mean, that's sleep and hydration, first of all. I mean, right? And then, but it's also listening and getting still and not believing everything we think and sense and feel and hear. Imagine if you were in a relationship with someone who you were able to kind of step back. You're in love, in beautiful love, but you're able to create a space, and rather than react to everything they say and hang on every word they say when they're in a bad mood, what if you were able to have this like little magical space between you where you notice like, oh, my partner is suffering right now. I can't find a way to like be calm in the face of his pain, and he's throwing it around whoever's in his field. Can you find compassion for that? Do you, like, many times the people I speak to will rehash all the things the person said, whether it was my boss or my coworker, or my brother or my partner. Do you believe what he called me? Do you believe what he said? Now, I'm not a proponent of sitting in an abusive relationship. Like this is not inviting people to be martyrs. You know, but this is in a healthy relationship where two people want to work on it, or more than two people if you're, I guess, in a polyamorous situation, but I was thinking of an office. But where people want to work on it, you know, you kind of have to have that space, and that space is water. So look around the world today. Who's giving anybody space? How many marriages are challenged? How many workplaces have toxicity? You know, how many times do we believe everything everyone says, take it seriously? And then how long does that sit in your body? Years, a lifetime for many people. And it just makes us sick. And so if water's your lowest or one of your lowest, think about where in your life you have space to pause and not take things personally. So that's what I mean by like these, you know, the magic in here is about the relationship among the five more than the one or two scores. But yeah, when you have a lot of scores that are close together, you can probably access these other gifts when your earth, you know, your earth gets worried, when you're concerned about, have I taken care of everyone properly? When you feel guilt over a relationship falling apart and you blame yourself. If your other scores are higher like yours are, you can probably soothe yourself faster. You probably don't stay in it for too long. You probably don't stay in the story for too long. You probably recover, and you probably can predict these things ahead of time. You might realize like, I'm going to go out. I'm making a new friend. I know I always get in my head about new friends. How can I set boundaries ahead of time to make sure that I'm taking care of myself? You know, so you're more likely to do those behaviors when your other scores are closer to your primary earth. I think Marilyn had your hand. Did you want to ask something,
Yes.
Marilyn?
Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, it was very similar. Yeah, all of my 5 elements were really, really close scores. Except for earth, and of course water was my lowest, but they were all like within like 1 or 2 points away from each other. So I just wanted to know what that really meant. I guess, like you said, I'm not trying to label myself, but
But I am. No, I know it's hard. Can you share what they are, the numbers?
Yeah, so fire was 63, earth was 65.7, metal was 63, water is 59.4, and wood is 62.1.
Yeah, so very similar. I mean, if you look at, you know, Allison, her breakdown, the ratio is the same as yours. Only hers were like a few points higher, but the same relationship. And so what you're going to find between yourself and Allison is that the same things will bother you. So you'll both feel guilt, blame yourself if a relationship dissolves. You'll both feel bad if you're not needed. If you made chocolate cookies for someone and they're like, oh, honey, I don't need those. That would hurt your feelings a lot. But Allison would be easier to read. You could look at, we as a group could look at Allison's face and know more. She's more passionate. She's more showy. Whereas Marilyn, you would kind of be like, I'm not sure. Like you would know this is going on inside of you. The rest of us might not know.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I was my primary, but I didn't realize the other numbers were so close. But yeah, thank you so much for that clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marilyn. I was going to ask about speaking when one person who has a primary archetype is communicating with another. what archetypes tend to clash if they are in a context where one person has a primary archetype, another one has a different one? What archetypes tend to clash? What archetypes tend to be magnetic?
Yeah. So this is really a very cool thing about the 5 archetypes is that there are when we have you know, primaries of different types, some nurture us and some challenge us. And so there's natural challenges are not people we have to avoid. Rather, they are the people who, like, these are the gifts the universe gives us to remind us we still have things to grow. Because until we start seeing our obstacles as opportunities, we're reacting and we're going to repeat and create the reality of the situations we don't want. And so, so our opposites, our challengers are here to kind of push our growth buttons a little bit. And if I'm still bothered by water, then it doesn't tell me that that water person's a jerk. I mean, that water person could be a jerk, but the message that's really coming is like, how come I still have a reaction to water? What have I not grown in me? And then I look at my elements and I'm like, oh, wait, I need to work on my earth. Empathy. How do I not, like, I need to be more empathetic to the pain a water person feels in my presence. I create that discomfort by showing up because we're opposites. So here's like, I don't know if you can see these. This is like fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And so the ones that crisscross are challengers to each other, and the ones that come next to us nurture us, and they feel easy to be around. So, so some of the challenger pairs, fire is the one, oh, there you go. I know. I'm like, where's my book? I have it here. Oh, there it is. Fire is the only one of the 5 that can really make metal feel pain. And why is this? Because fire is about play and metal is about doing what's right. And fire can insult boundaries for the sake of getting close. Remember, their biggest fear is loss of connection. And so because they can't, if they're stressed and they can't tolerate disconnect, they'll reach out and literally touch you. They will break your boundaries. And metal has impenetrable boundaries and rules about how long I need to know you before you can come into my space. And so it's very uncomfortable for metal. Then you have earth. Earth is the only one that can make water feel deeply uncomfortable because water is all about self-sufficiency. I don't need any, right? We don't need the chocolate chip cookies, although I'd really like one. Water doesn't need anything, and they take it personally. They take it as an insult because if Earth is constantly trying to help you, so Earth just wants to be needed. And so when Earth gets caught up in their overactive need to be needed, they're actually creating pain for water, who hates to be misunderstood as someone who needs you. And so they create that dynamic by just like, I'm just being myself, I'm just being nice. But that's the very thing that makes water people feel deeply uncomfortable and want to isolate more. And then you have metal. Metal is the one that can create discomfort for wood because wood is all about fast. It's all about move, 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 move. And metal's about stop. Like literally a metal stop sign. Like if you think about the roots of a tree of wood, the roots of a tree can break through anything. I mean, you've probably seen sidewalks like upended from roots of trees. And also people's, if you have a cement foundation to your house, tree roots can really not be your friend. But imagine a metal foundation to a building. Not one tree root's going to get through that. So metal wood can push, but metal will always say no. And wood's biggest fears are anything or anyone getting in their way of moving fast. So then you have water. Water is the only one that can really make fire feel bad because fire needs to be seen and celebrated for who they are in order to feel safe. But water loves to isolate and be alone. They can't tolerate socializing and eye contact. And so just by virtue of being who they are, fire being around them feels unseen and then scared and then panic. And then they create their story about, oh, that person doesn't like me. I'm not appreciated. I'm not funny. I'm not fun to be around. My life must suck. And so these things naturally occur in our environment and they play out in every kind of social situation. So if you've ever been, to a gathering of people you don't know or people you do know, and you're just standing around and certain people rub you the wrong way and certain other people are really easy to talk to, this is what's happening underneath. These are those hidden dynamics that create the perceptions of reality. And if we don't know that they're happening underneath all of these thoughts we're having, we become a victim of circumstance. Ugh, that guy at the party was so mean. He didn't like my jokes at all. Well, no, he was water and you scared the crap out of him because he wanted to make eye contact. Right? So when we understand this, all of a sudden, life is so much more enriched and fulfilling, and you know how to have empathy. We think that empathy is like walking in someone else's shoes or knowing how they must feel, or giving them what we might want. But empathy is really dropping out of your perception of them, of your preconceived thoughts and perceptions of them. So each of us under stress has a very specific and predictable perception of each of the other elements. I know right away walking into a room what everyone in the room is going to think of me if I'm too fiery. And when Carey and Paul saw me at the Tony Robbins event a couple years ago, I had everyone take the assessment beforehand, so I knew who was in the room. And as you might imagine, many of the people in this room were high wood. Tony's very wood. He's all about drive and getting things done. And I made a point not to quiet down my fire too much, but just kind of be a little fiery, knowing that wood people think that fiery people can be too silly and not get to the point. And so after a few minutes, I asked who's wood in the room? Raise your hand. And then I asked them, how many of you are wondering when the hell I'm going to get to the point? And everyone raised their hands. So you start to know it. And I didn't take it personally because I know by being fiery, I was demonstrating that if I don't find balance in myself and act from a place, take action from a place of balance, I'm creating pain for all the other 4 types in the room. Wood is going to get antsy. When is she going to get to the point? Earth is going to be like, oh, she's such a show off. And metal is going to be like, God, does she not have any boundaries? And water is going to be like, I don't believe anything she says. And I know that. And if I were to take any of that personally, imagine I wouldn't be able to sleep. I'd have horrible stomach pain. But I know those are just the embedded natural dynamics that we are born with. And they are the foundation of every time you're going to ever feel uncomfortable in a relationship anywhere, with yourself, with anyone else, at work. And when you know them, you can create a plan for overcoming them and not taking everything so personally. It's just nature. And when you, like, every fire person on the planet has the exact same story, the exact same victim story. This person did this, made me feel that, and now I can't have intimacy. 100% same story, every fire person you'll meet on the planet. Same with earth will have the same story. Metal will have the same story about not being valued. Water will have a story. Water gets victimized around the idea of power and wisdom. No one saw me as wise. Nanda, did you have a question? What's Earth's story? Oh, you want to go through everyone's victim thoughts? Can we do that real quick? Earth gets victimized around being needed. So Earth's story is nobody needs me. Everybody is so needy. Being needy. I don't know how to get my needs met. Anything around the word need, like not having the relationship around asking for needs or being needy or always taking care of others' needs or nobody needs me. All of that is the like the challenge, the deep challenge of Earth. We're all gonna have all these challenges. We're all gonna say like, oh, I didn't exercise enough, or oh, I didn't get good sleep. But when we think about the things we over ruminate about, the things that get us really stuck in relationships, the things that are the most painful that we can't seem to kick, those stuck patterns, it will always go back to your primary. And that's how you're most likely, that's the story, that's where you're going to get stuck in love relationships, in work relationships, in your relationship to your highest purpose. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
I love hearing these. These are fantastic. What about you've pointed to how these fuel each other. How can we do that within ourselves? So what I mean is that, we might have a fire is really great at fueling a wood, for instance, and a wood is really great. I don't know, is wood, no, water fuels wood fuels fire. So if that's happening from an outside human fueling wood, or an outside wood fueling another outside human fire, how do we do that within ourselves? So how do we give ourselves what we need if we're low in water, or we are high in metal or high in earth? What do we do in order to give ourselves what we need? Of course, that's a wood question.
Well,
what do we do? What do we do? How do we get it done?
Yeah.
What's the answer?
What do we do?
Give me that.
Yeah.
Such a wood question.
And it also makes sense that a wood person would ask a question like, hey, tell me how to get what I need. Not an earth person didn't ask me about needs. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I shouldn't have needs. And I'm being dramatic to make a point. It's not like all the time, every person, but well, how about if we demonstrate this by taking somebody who wants me to do this, like how, with their own scores. And I'll tell you how to take care of yourself. And by, and it's universal. We all have all these. So whatever I share for one person will apply to everyone in the
Volunteers. It's volunteer time, everyone. Who are the volunteers? What do we got? Who wants to have the professional analyze their scores?
I think Gretchen is leaving.
Oh, Marilyn. Okay, who raised their hand first, Gretchen or Marilyn? Again, such a wood question.
I think it's Gretchen.
Now I can't help but see this. Okay, Gretchen, here we go.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself.
Hi, Gretchen. Who's Michael?
All right, can you hear me?
There's Michael.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to note, like Michael's comment. I'm very earth, therefore I wanted to ask the word question, but didn't want to take up anyone else's space. That's earth. Earth would kind of like to go first, but doesn't want to insult anyone else in the room by taking their place if they really wanted to do it. That's a very earthy thing. So hi, Gretchen.
Hello.
Hi, do you have your 5 scores?
I do. Well, my highest is 84.5% metal, which I'm sure will not surprise Carey. My fire, my fire is 61.2. My earth is 56, or excuse me, 55.8. My water is 51.3, and my wood is 62.1.
Okay, great.
And I put a
So-
little thing in
so
the
if-
text saying that it was helpful to know that it's fire that makes me feel pain. And
Uncomfortable. Yeah.
so,
Yeah. So you've noticed, so that makes sense to you when you think
Yeah.
about yourself in the world?
yeah, I can go in an uncomfortable situation from 0 to 1 in anger, anxiety, whatever, like in 2 seconds. Like,
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
just am really looking for what are the triggers for that, so I can
Mhm.
learn to manage that.
Okay. Okay. So when you say that you can very quickly go into a stress state, can you give me an example of a time, like a situation when that happens?
It will be having to make quick decisions, communicating with other people or with spouse, where I think I've laid out everything very clearly, all the data, all the information, all the whatever, and then it just kind of collapses and I go, excuse me, what the hell?
Mhm.
Where did you miss all this? And I go,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm very precise on all these things.
Yeah.
I know you can't
Yeah.
imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand. Okay. So, so with your primary metal, is much higher than all the others. And
Mhm.
so when your primary is much higher than all the others, you will see the world through that lens primarily. And sometimes it will make it very hard for you to see the world through any other perspective. And so when there's that much of a gap, you'll have a short fuse. You'll be quick to get frustrated. And so what types of things does high metal get frustrated about? They get frustrated around value, around not being around their ideas or their information not having been valued by someone. Like if your spouse had valued what you said,
Mhm.
he wouldn't be asking you what, right? He wouldn't be like he would have paid attention. And so metal will go into the space of the spectrum of stress and strength. Whereas at my most stressed point is taking things personally. My strongest self is where I recognize that there's a process, the process perspective versus the personal perspective. And the process is that everyone's on their journey, and not everyone takes in and learns information the same way or the speed at which I do. And some people get so distracted in their minds and in their stress states that they scatter. Everything they should know is gone. And like, I don't know if any of you has ever like either been a parent or taught in school or been around kids. When a child does something, I was about to spell B-A-D. I don't know. I don't have any kids right now in this room. But when a child does something bad and the parent comes in and is like, what were you thinking? How many of you were like, oh, had a kid who was like, well, here's what I was thinking. Let's sit down and talk about it. I'll take you through the process. Like, no, they
No.
forgot everything. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking, like they cry. So
Yeah.
what happens is like they scatter. And so under stress, especially fire will scatter, wood will fight back, water will just not look at you. Earth will talk too much and try to talk their way out of it or tell you the story about what happened. And so, so we have to remember, like, as metal people, you were born in this world with this unique gift of knowing exactly how to be the most righteous human, to make really high vibe decisions easily without having to really think about it. You are uniquely gifted in that. And where metal gets stuck is attaching meaning to whether or not other people acknowledge that.
Okay.
So the highest expression of metal is living in this space of, like, you know, like clergy, like really good, a priest, a rabbi, you know, somebody who's like who dedicated their entire lives to learning about how to live a righteous life according to God, the boss of everything, right? You know, they still welcome everyone into their flock, even the ones who make mistakes, and they don't take it personally. They're the teacher of this whole organization, the whole community. But it's not, you know, I know that people make mistakes, and I'm here as this righteous guide. I have this unique gift that my flock doesn't necessarily have, but I love them and I forgive them and I'm grateful that they're here. That's the highest expression of metal. And until metal primaries can live in that state, they create the reality of having taken things personally, then a belief about themselves that I'm not valuable. And until you change and acknowledge that I'm valuable, I can't feel good about myself. So then they choose actions which are anger or pushy or whatever it is, or avoidance, whatever the person does, that then reinforces this reality that I'm not valuable in my marriage. But that's just because we started with the limited perception of taking it personally, that the person didn't see my value, my God-given, inborn, coming out of the womb, valuable, you know, valuability. And so what will happen with, like, metal in that relationship with wood and fire that are the ones that can be crunchy and annoying to metal. Fire's most afraid that you don't love them. And so they will forget everything you told them, because they're so worried and panicked that your face didn't show love. And then they create a story that maybe she doesn't love me. And so they will look at you and nod and hear nothing you say. You will say, hey, honey, could you clean the kitchen after dinner? And they'll go in and they'll load the dishwasher, but the sink will be messy and there'll be water all over the place. And they'll forget that there was a pot sitting on the stove, and they'll think they cleaned up. And they're waiting for you to say, like, oh, you're amazing. And you go in and you're pissed.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does this happen? Like, how do we get you feeling stronger? One is understanding this spectrum, the personal, you know, all the way to the process. But the other piece is, like, looking at where can we start? Your earth and your water are right next to your metal, so they soothe you. And if we can strengthen those, then your metal doesn't have to stand alone and do all the work itself. And so what does it look like to strengthen earth? Earth is food at first. It's food and digestion. So when I work with someone, I usually ask about the physical component, because if the physical body can't hold its own foundation, we can't put any cognitive work inside or behavioral change work. So I would ask, like, take a look at your diet. Are you eating, you know, good food? You know, are you skipping meals? Are you, you know, I'm an Ayurvedic nutritionist, so I do talk about poop a little bit. But yeah, you don't have to answer in public. But just, like, you know, do you have constipation? Do you have fast? Do you have gas? Do you have bloatedness or any? Like, just make sure that everything is flowing with the with food, with your digestion. The next level for earth is conversation and sharing for the sake of showing up as a partner in humanity. Like if you look outside at the earth, it just sits there. It doesn't do anything. It holds everything in so that you can like plant your things in it or plant your house in it and just hold still so that you're secure. And so earth, the second level of earth is all about conversation. It's like just showing up and being present for someone, not to get something out of you, not to get you to do something, not to no agenda. Rather, can you be present with someone? So I would suggest like doing things, for example, if this isn't already in your repertoire, finding like 1 or 2 opportunities to just show appreciation for people during your day. Like if you buy coffee from the same coffee shop, or if you go to the same dry cleaners, or if you're going for gas, or the same lady checks you out at the grocery store. Or if it's someone, who you're more familiar with, a friend or family member, ask, and really ask because you want to know, how are you today? Or, hey, I remember you were telling me that your son's birthday party was last weekend. How did it go? Establish connection. Earth is context. Earth is like, oh, I love that shirt on you. I have the same one. But metal is a little bit nervous about engaging in conversation and asking too many questions because they have impenetrable boundaries and rules about not wanting anyone to ask them things. So come up with 2 or 3 questions that you'd be willing to answer back if someone asked you. Like, hey, where'd you buy that car? I really like that color. Or, oh, where'd you get your glasses? There are things you can ask that aren't too invasive. Or it could be your spouse. It could be like, honey, tell me who was your favorite teacher in school? Or what was your favorite food growing up? To establish context and more intertwining. That's what Earth conversation is about. And so once or twice a day, I would make that an activity. As long as you're eating too, food has to be there. And then water is all about one, are you hydrating? Do you drink enough water during the day?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Not-
so you're hydrating. And how's your sleep?
And my sleep is great.
It's good. Okay, good. So so the next level of water is listening. And listening is not just listening to what someone else is saying. Rather, when we talk about listening in 5 archetypes, it's, can you hear your perceptions that you're creating, the meaning you're making of what someone else is doing? And that's the harder thing, because it really asks you to establish a new muscle that we're not used to using. It means that you have to establish that space in between hearing information and then just pausing and observing it rather than having it mean anything. If you had given your husband a whole bunch of, instructions for something and not one thing was done, or everything was done in the wrong order, whatever it was, the quick reactive space would be an emotion and then creating a meaning, it meant something, he must not trust me, or he must not value my ideas, but whatever it is, all it is the story. And so can you listen and just notice when you do it? So that would be your activity for a week, is just notice when you creating a perception around something that happened. It must mean he's, or gosh, I must be blank, or whatever the story is. Don't do anything about it. Just build the ability to do it. Most people struggle with this a lot. But that, in order for having a short fuse around quick decisions, speed is anathema to metal. Metal is stop. Those quick decisions will get you in a tizzy. But that's where you go into water and you're like, oh, hold on a minute. Tell me more.
Okay.
tell me more about what you need. And next time,
Okay.
if it's possible, can you give me this information the night before?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
helpful?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that works. That works. That works. Especially
Amazing.
Okay.
for a new project that I'm going into tomorrow. It's like, okay, perfect.
Mm, good, good, good.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Oh, good.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Gretchen. Okay, I want to thank you, Gretchen, and thank you for diving so deep, because I'm sure that other people are seeing little glimpses of themselves. So hands up if you're seeing a glimpse of yourself in some of the examples that Carey was given. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so I want to be aware of our time, and there's something else I want to make sure that we cover before we wrap up here. And if I drop off, it's because I am hotspotting in a remote area of the world. So Carey is running a beta group for gathering information to continue to develop an app that helps people with their archetypes. And so if you would like to be a part of that beta, you can reach out to Carey, or she's going to provide some, do you have something in the chat that you can provide? Yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
link that you can share there. And so you'll have the opportunity to be a part of her beta program. And if you want to get an opportunity to have 15 minutes with Carey to be able to ask questions and go over that beta, I think she'll be able to do that from that link. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have Carey back in another couple weeks. And this is going to be on Thursday, April 18th. We got this together very last minute, but this will give us more of an opportunity to go for some deeper dives, to go for some more examples, to workshop out together as well. So today we got together really quickly. We got to be able to put this together very quickly. And we'll have a little more time to do more on this workshopping end. So I'd like to give Carey a moment to say any of the anything you need to about your beta program, about anything that is great to share for the rest of us here.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Carey. So over the years of working with big groups who are struggling to function well going through change, I've noticed that people need reminders in the morning that say like, hey, fire person, notice times today when you get frustrated that someone didn't make eye contact or someone didn't smile back at you. So it's these customized little reminders to keep us out of those storytelling. And if we can stay out of the storytelling, we avoid all the interpersonal friction in the first place. And so I've created a text reminder program that is customized to people's scores, that delivers a morning prompt, a morning reminder, and an evening prompt that builds those other 4 element muscles in the mind, so that we would round out people like when Gretchen was sharing, like, how do I get out of this space? It kind of delivers these daily little prompts to remind you exactly how. And so I've gone through 4 betas with another platform, and I finally built out our own customized 5 archetypes platform, and we're going to start testing this soon. And I'd love to have you guys try it out and give me your feedback. So the link will take you to booking a 15-minute call with me where I will explain what I would ask you to do, so what you're signing up for, and that's kind of it.
I love that. I feel so, so lucky that we've been able to be a part of this and be invited to your beta. By all means, grab the link. And before we hop off for this evening, know that you are all welcome to join us. This is typically a private coaching session. So we've got some of our private mastermind empowered team people on here. Hi, team. Yay. And we will be back on Thursday, the 18th, to do another amazing workshop session. And before we go, just to connect everyone in seeing where we're all at, can you pop one line or one word that really landed for you, whether it's a sentence, what landed for you about the archetypes tonight? Let Carey know, let her fire know. Let Carey understand. What landed for you in what she taught, what she shared, what other people shared? What landed for you, or what did you learn about yourself through the assessment, through the archetypes, through what Carey has shared, so we can understand? Okay, very cool. What do we have? Lynn says thank you. Metal being attached to value, yes. Staying out of stories telling. The importance of honoring your elements when motivating yourself. The need for play and fast action and exercise. Great distinction on self-motivation. Breathe more. Meaning of the numbers. That isn't one box, that we're all a blend. Yes, that it's accurate. Amazing, amazing. And keep adding those in as they're coming up. Interesting how exercise tells so much. Focus on the deep, the sleep, and the breath. Don't have to believe everything you hear. Absolutely. Our brain tends to latch on to that. Where is this? Earth, who knew? I know, who knew, Allison? But it adds up. My best friend is on here. She says, you have got my number. I wasn't aware of the need aspect of work. Yes, the story of Earth. Isn't that interesting? Always looking at the connection and empathy, which is also Earth, the beautiful, the positive, the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative, the shadow and the strong, and using both for intra and interpersonal relationship, the balance. I'm going to personally say this for myself, that being a strong wood number one, a metal number two, Paul is flipped. Paul is metal number one, wood number two. It's a very interesting dynamic with us, because when we are in context that we're both wood, we're like an unstoppable force. When we are in context that we are both metal, then we're both very particular. We're usually both appreciating the same things. When he's in wood and I'm in metal, it is a hardcore clash. When I'm in wood and he's in metal, it is a hardcore clash. What has helped me so, so much in going through a healing journey is being so much more in water. Water has helped me so much more. And that's just my personal story. So Michael and Colleen says, good way to figure out how to make the changes I need to make in myself to create the life that I want. Beautiful. Allison and I both have fire as our highest. You do? Yes. And then you're on fire until you're not. Until one of the fires burns out, maybe. Carey would be able to tell, do we need more insurance? I love it. Earth and fire. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, now we're getting clarity. I love it. All right, everyone. I would love to say thank you. So thank you very, very much for enjoying this beautiful experience with Carey, and we will be back in another couple of weeks. So join us again. Share this with your friends. It's a very rare opportunity that A, we have Carey Davidson, and B, that we open it up for a wider group besides our tight-knit group. So thank you so much, Carey. Join us back in again on the 18th. And we wish you a wonderful, fiery, earthy, watery, metally, woody, good evening. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
What are you eating?